Welcome, John Morris with us. Everybody give him a nice round of applause here. As we all know, John, especially from the iconic role of Andy as we see him out front there. John, can I just start off asking you, obviously, the obligatory question. What is it like being one of the most iconic characters ever? And this is a big thing. This is a generational movie series.
Yeah.
Is there an added pressure at all to you for this, or what is it like?
So, playing Andy in the Toy Story films, I can say has been one of the highlights of my life and my career. Of course, I've taken playing him very seriously in that each time I came back, because as you said, the series more or less took place in real time. Right. With all of those gaps, I took it very seriously. In coming back each time with the directors, it's like, let's find Andy's voice again. Where is he in his life? Where is he in the story? What is he going through emotionally? Especially in the third one, right, when he's a teenager, he's off to college, he's packing up his room. It was sad. Yeah, it was sad.
It was emotional, I think, for all of us.
A lot of people talk about the last scene in Toy Story 3, and how can you not cry at that scene? And right. I think it is true because we all know what that's like for one chapter to close and one chapter to open, and those kinds of transition points in your life and the sensitivity there. So yeah, it's been amazing. Yeah.
Awesome. So obviously I'm going to have a few more questions for you, but folks, feel free if anyone does have any questions. We've got the microphone set up right here between the two cameras. Feel free, come on up and ask a question if you like, as they say. Now you talked about the overall heaviness of owning a character like this.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you when you see the reaction you get from the fans? And and you've seen this throughout the generations, because you've probably seen this you've seen kids,
yep,
like fans grow up from kids,
yep,
to adults.
Yep.
What is that like for you?
It's so much fun and very meaningful at the same time. I mean, I've been here for about an hour, and just with fans coming up and many people in very cool costumes, sharing their stories, sharing what these films mean to them, what Andy means to them, their personal connection. I love those moments because when you look at the numbers, it's like over 1 billion people saw Toy Story 3, over 1 billion people saw Toy Story 4. It's hard to wrap your head around that. But when you can meet people one-on-one and hear their individual stories and this is what it means to me and my siblings and my family and my boyfriend, my girlfriend, those are such valuable moments and makes it even more meaningful for me.
Now, you were a kid yourself when this started, so
yeah,
you were just forming who you are. You were forming John. How much of John is in Andy, and how much of Andy is in John?
That's a good question. I think I was actually talking to Jolene about this. I think there is a parallel in that Andy is a good kid, a good person with a good heart, and that's how my mom raised me. Right. She was like, you need to be a good person, you need to be kind to people, those are important. And so I think there's a parallel there, and there's a warmth to Andy, a warmth to his voice, a warmth to his energy that I've always tried to, embody as well. I think it's interesting with the third film, when Andy came back as a teenager, as we were talking about earlier, with Molly and the younger sister, I remember talking with Lee Unkrich, the director, and he was like, we don't want him to have too much teenage angst, where he's like, because there's a line like, Molly, out of my room, and he's like, we don't want you to be like yelling at her in a Sid sort of way.
Right. You're not Sid.
Yeah, like, you're her older brother. It's kind of a balance. You're her older brother, you're a teenager, you have your stuff, you don't want her to touch your stuff, but also you love her and
right.
You care about her. So it's just finding those balances in those moments. But I think there's a lot of overlap, and we both have brown hair. And he has blue eyes. I have brown eyes.
Right.
But.
And you have the same red cowboy hat, I heard.
Yeah, same red cowboy hat. I have a beard. He doesn't. Anyway.
Amazing. So now, you know, us being 2019 in the age of social media and things like that, we see a lot of fan theories out there.
Yeah.
Now, do you have a favorite fan theory that you've seen on the internet, considering about Andy?
So there are some interesting theories, I think, about his dad.
Right.
Because we never meet his dad, or see his dad, or hear of his dad, I don't think. So that's kind of interesting. I've read everything from, you know, people thought they're divorced, or he passed away, or he's like on long-term leave, or you know, it's kind
a secret agent.
It's interesting to kind of think about that, and yet, you know, Andy of course has his close-knit family, but that's always kind of interesting. And then I'm always intrigued by the Easter eggs, which I know a lot of people are.
Right.
And I watch the films. I'm like, let me find all the Easter eggs. And you know, it's like you always need to look at the books on the shelf behind the characters, because it's usually somehow Pixar related. And
what is it? The A263.
Yeah.
That they try to put in there everywhere from. I forget what it was. It's an artist. It was their home room at whatever the big art school was.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also interesting to see, like, whenever there are toys in films, you know, they're like, I think in Monsters Inc. there's some Toy Story toys in Boo's room. You know, like hidden. You know, it's like those little crossover moments. Yeah, the nod, exactly. Right. And it also shows that Toy Story is its own series and world and franchise, of course, but then there's the Pixar world, the Disney Pixar world, which I know all of you are very familiar with. And so it's, you know, it's exciting to think of it as its own little universe.
Right.
Yeah.
Amazing. Now, as I said, if you folks want, you can, we'll open this up for questions. You can go right up to that microphone in the middle. Does anyone have a question for John? Yeah, come on up.
One of my questions was actually going to be about these theories that are going around, because one of the ones that I was always curious about was whether Jessie was actually Andy's mom.
Right.
And I'm just curious, is there actually backstories that you guys get to hear? Like, do you get any of those stories that we don't, as like viewers, get to hear about?
That's a great question. So, in my experience, the Pixar creative team likes to actually keep things a little open for interpretation, so that you can use your imagination as a viewer to, you know, think about different spin-offs and things. I usually, when I talk to them about these theories and not Easter eggs, theories, they say, oh, you know, I usually don't get a definitive answer because they kind of want to keep it open, and sometimes it's actually like they don't have an intention. It's just something that fans are really, you know, keen fans and eagle-eyed fans are kind of picking up on. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, I got a couple questions. How many kids did you have to compete with for the role of Andy?
So it was an open call for about 100 kids, and I was 7 for the first one. And it went down to 10 and 5 and 3 and 2 and 1. Yes.
And my second question is, what's your favorite Pixar movie besides Toy Story?
That is such a great question. I am a Disney Pixar fan as well. So it's sometimes hard to pick. I really love Finding Nemo because, first of all, I love the ocean. So, you know, there's that. And just the characters, they're so lovable, and you know, I love them. A close second would be Wall-E, because I just think it's so fascinating how far they looked into the future, and actually kind of chilling, because if you think of Wall-E and then you look at us now and like how much we're on our screens and stuff, it's like I think they were kind of sensing, you know, the way in which we're moving. So yeah, those two I think stand out to me, and they're all amazing. I could say amazing things about all the films, but those, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Great questions.
Yeah.
Nat.
So Andy's favorite toy was Buzz Lightyear. What is your favorite toy?
Oh. So do you mean my favorite toy in the movies or my favorite toy in life? in general?
In life.
In life, okay. So I was actually talking with a fan earlier about this. When I auditioned for the role of Andy, for the first audition, they said, bring your favorite toy, and we're just gonna record you playing with your toy. And that's the first audition. And then the subsequent callbacks where we read from the script. And so I brought all my X-Men figures. Nice. And I was 7, and I brought a huge box, and my mom was like, no, you're supposed to bring one toy. And I was like, no, that is one toy. It's X-Men. It's all that, you need all the toys. You need Storm and Wolverine and Professor X and everyone. And so I would say my X-Men figures, which I still have. Some of them, unfortunately, are a little, because they're from the 90s. And yeah.
I have a few of those legends as well.
Yeah, I know. And they're a little scuffed up, and I should get them all refurbished. But yeah, I would say my X-Men figures. I still have a Storm that there's a little flicker on the back, and the lightning bolt lights up, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, so those.
Amazing. Any other questions? All right.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so I'm very curious because you became Andy at like 7 years old, and obviously it took off like a juggernaut.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering, first of all, like what you being as a voice actor and not as like a TV actor, did you have the same issues with blowing up as a celebrity at a very young age and having to experience all that, the fame and the issues there, or were you basically still able to have like a normal kid life and people not really recognizing that you were Andy because you were a voice actor? Was the fame thing a real problem for you as a kid, or did you have a normal childhood still?
That's a great question. I had a normal childhood because and that was something my parents, especially my mom, was very intent on. So I lived in going back in time, Pixar used to be in Richmond, and now it's in Emeryville. And when I was working with Pixar in the early 90s, there were like 20 employees, and now there are 1,500. So, that has scaled up. And I was living in the Bay Area at the time, and I would go after school and record Andy, and even when I was 7, it was kind of abstract. They said, we're gonna make a feature-length animated film with computers, and I was like, what? At that time, it was very incredibly groundbreaking, of course, and changed the industry for the better. And so I would say with my friends, they were very excited, and whenever I told anyone or anyone figured it out at sleepaway camp or summer camp or tennis camp, they got super excited. But my mom, really raised me. She said it's important to be proud of your accomplishments and maintain humility, and we want you to feel comfortable. And so I didn't necessarily become a child actor in TV and film, the way others did, and it was more local, and I was in the right place at the right time with the right role, and it all kind of came together.
Awesome. Anyone else?
Do you have a favorite of the Toy Story movies?
That's a good question, and a hard question. It's a little bit of a split for me. Toy Story, the first one, because it was just so, it's the first in the franchise, and it just has that, like, it almost has a not a rawness, but you know what I mean? It has like this is the origin story, quality to it. It's like a gem. And then I would say Toy Story 3 because it was the most emotional for me. I feel like I have the most personal connection to it. I remember those voice sessions were incredibly emotional because the director, Lee Unkrich, said to me, think back to this time and also think back to like saying goodbye to someone and what that means, and it was it was deep. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I think that probably just about does it for this edition here. This awesome panel we just had here with John Morris. Everybody, I first would like to just say thank you so much for coming and doing this. Not only for coming and doing this panel, but for giving so many generations of pleasure and love, which is that's the one big thing from Toy Story. I think we all took from it is that kind of universal love for everybody. And thank you so much for what you've done, and thanks so much for coming here, everybody. John
Thank you.
Morris.
Thank you.